those first 6 months, I reminded myself, hey, Mark, this is going to take time, but you've done this before to build a business. Just stick in there.
Sure. So what compelled you to go into the coaching direction? Was there maybe an aha moment that at some point told you, I need to go in this direction?
Was helped by a couple different coaches and mentors in between my real estate days and when I started my coaching business. I had a period of a couple of years, I say in the wilderness, my wilderness years, and I didn't even really know what coaching was until I had to get help. I knew roughly what it was, but back in the early 2000s, coaching wasn't what it has become and what it's still becoming. So for me, it was getting help by other coaches, seeing the power of coaching. And then I thought to myself, you know what, I want to get back into business. I don't want to do real estate because I'm sick and tired of it, burnout, not happy with real estate. I'm going to try this coaching thing because this looks really cool. You can help a lot of people. You have great flexibility as long as you have internet access and you can set your own schedules. And it's funny because take, for example, this interview, I don't consider this work. So it's really tough when people say to me, how many hours a week do you work, Mark? Because I'm like, I just picture us chatting with James. This is something I enjoy. I don't consider this work. It's not like I'm cutting trees in the middle of the woods and lugging them all around. It's not manual labor, but it's fun. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Is I was helped by coaches and that convinced me to become a coach.
So is there any other profession that you think at some point in life you might want to dip your toes in?
Oh, that's a great question. I've learned not to pigeonhole myself. So for years, I identified myself as a quote real estate guy. And what I realized with the business closure was that, hey, I'm not my business, right? I have a real estate business, but I'm me. They're two separate things. And same thing goes with coaching. I keep a little bit of a healthy distance where, yeah, I'm a coach, but who knows, right? I just turned 40 years old. Might be boring if I do this till I'm 40 or 50, another 40 or 50 years till I'm 90, knock on wood. But one of the big things I would like to do, which I've started doing more of the last 2 years, is speaking. So I've gotten out to a lot of different events and I've had a really fun time. I really like speaking. So speaking, traveling around the world, reaching more people, that's the name of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say would be your greatest character strength?
Greatest character strength? I think for me, it would probably be consistency, if that would be considered, character strength. It's again, it goes back to what I learned in my 20s building real estate business. One of the reasons I did so well in my past life there is that I was very consistent. Every day I knew what I had to do. Now back then it was calling 20 homeowners in my market, doing phone prospecting and stuff. Now in coaching, there's certain things I do every day. For example, I email my list every day. I'm a really big fan of daily emails. So I've been doing those now for about 1,000 days, give or take, straight. I've never missed a day. Mm-hmm. Those are the type of things that aren't always a lot of fun. So people don't stick with them forever, but it's a compound effect like Darren Hardy talks about in his book. And for me, I think that's a strength, is that I'm able to do something without looking and worrying if it's bringing in money today or not. And that gets me started. Daily emails, good example. The first 30 days, I was just sending those emails out, wasn't getting a lot of money coming in from it, but then all of a sudden it turned, and then I started to notice more results from it. So consistency is something that's lacking from a lot of entrepreneurs nowadays. They have bright, shiny object syndrome. They try something for 2 days, 3 days, they don't get clients from it, so they go try something else. And then there's the next bright, shiny object too, and they don't give any one thing enough time to get traction.
Mm-hmm. So on the flip side of a strength, what would you say is the greatest weakness that you have?
Well, I touched on it earlier. Patience, lack of patience can be a bit of one. It's funny, I have a twin brother, Matt, and we're alike in some ways, but some ways we're not. So for example, he's very detail oriented. He likes the spreadsheets. He likes, doing the kind of behind the scenes things. Me, I'm more fly by the seat of my pants in a lot of ways. I'm that typical entrepreneur that jumps off a cliff and hopes to build a plane before he hits the ground. That's kind of me with it. So it's a weakness for me that I don't have what he has with that. And I've found this to be the case with a lot of entrepreneurs where we're looking big picture and stuff like that, but often we need to have somebody that grounds us with the nuts and bolts stuff, which is just as important. So where Matt is, technically, I say he's on my team. He has his own business, but he and his team are editing my podcasts and stuff. They're good people to have behind the scenes because he doesn't want to be out there. He doesn't want to be doing interviews like this and speaking gigs or whatever. He's very happy doing very well with what he's doing. That would be a weakness for me. The stuff that he's good at, I'm bad at.
Yeah, I certainly understand there. So when you're doing your brainstorming and idea gathering, a lot of people will have a special place that they go to, perhaps, walks in nature, walk the dog, what have you, go to the gym. What's a place do you have a place that you go to do some of your brainstorming?
Well, it's interesting because some of my best ideas come in places you wouldn't think of it. For example, the shower. I get a lot of emails for ideas for programs, emails, so on when I'm in the shower. And then I got to race off and dry off really quickly to jot it down before I forget. So I think what happens is when you turn your brain off, you're not putting pressure on yourself. You're not sitting at the desk with an empty legal pad, forcing yourself to come up with something. I think the subconscious seeps out and gives you that idea when you least expect it. I find drives, if I go for a drive to clear my head, often I get good ideas there and when I'm on that drive. So not saying I don't sit at my home office desk and do stuff. I do come up with ideas there, but often the ideas come faster when I'm not chained to the desk, when I'm out and around going for a walk. We have some great nature parks here in my neck of the woods. Going for a walk, that usually gets the creative juices flowing as well.
Yeah, I certainly understand there. Just not necessarily, when you're chained to the desk, because sometimes you get that writer's block, so to speak. And
and I think as entrepreneurs, you have to realize that some days you have it and some days you don't. Have you ever seen the movie Limitless, Bradley Cooper? Yeah. So anyone who hasn't seen it, in Limitless, they take a pill that opens up your whole 100% of your brain's capabilities. NZT 48, I think it's called. Some days I feel like I've taken an NZT 48 pill. I'm just flying on the keyboard. I'm just churning out content. And I try to ride that wave as long as possible. There's other days that I'm like, oh man, I don't have it today. You can't be on 24/7. And it's in those days I don't put a lot of pressure on myself. I say, what, I'm just going to chill out. I'm going to go for a walk or a drive or whatever. And then when I get back in, I'm usually motivated and I've got that energy. But I think the worst thing you could do is try to, if it's just not happening, try to power through it and waste a lot of time and stuff. I think that it's better to step away and then come back on those days that you don't feel like you took the Limitless pill.
Yeah. And that's okay. It's okay to have those days because, just as, some days are really high income generating, the next day it may not be. In a lot of ways that could be part of, just the entrepreneurial experience.
Yeah. I do. Go ahead. I do a lot of batching. So on those days when things are really rolling for me, I'll write 2 weeks worth of emails in one sitting. So people say, oh, well, how are you able to email every single day, Mark? It's not like I'm sitting down 15 minutes before my email goes out to my list in the morning and typing something out. I'm batching things, so I'm staying at least 2 weeks ahead, sometimes 4 weeks ahead. So if something happens in life or I get hit by a bus or something, my emails are still going out because they're all scheduled there as well. So I think batching is really important because when you change activities, I think it takes something like 21 minutes to get back to in the flow or to after you change things. So that's why I like sticking to something. Okay, where I say Friday mornings from 10 till noon, I'm going to work on just emails for the next week, or I'm going to work on this for this couple hour block or whatever.
Yeah, and that's smart. That's smart to time block. So if you're to describe kind of your average day as a coach, how would you describe that to somebody that wanted to get into the business? Kind of a high level description.
Well, it's funny because when people get into coaching, they assume that you're going to be spending most of your time coaching, say 80, 90% of your time coaching, and then 10 to 20% of your time doing back end stuff and a little bit of marketing or whatever. It's actually flipped. So you're spending more of your time finding clients than you are actually coaching. So for me, a lot of my time spent is on content creation because I'm really big on using organic methods to get my message out there. So a lot of my time in the day is spent doing interviews like this, or me recording for my podcast, or writing content that has to go out there. And I say very little of my week, relatively speaking, is spent on actually coaching, because I usually have one group going at a time that meets once a week. And I have 5 or 6 people in there, and then I'll have a handful of one-on-one clients. But it's not like I'm working with 100 different people at once. I charge enough that I only have to work with a handful of people to be very happy with that. Then I can put my effort into content or online programs. I have a print newsletter for coaches that takes up some time, and so on. So in my world, you're not going to be spending 80-90% of your time coaching. It's going to be the opposite.
Right. So as we're winding down our time, I have a final question for you. It's sort of like a trivia question, if you will.
Sure.
It's what would you say is something about you, Marc, that most people don't know?
Well, I already mentioned that I have an identical twin brother, so that would be one. And here's a funny one. I laugh. We had a band in high school, and I use that term band very loosely. And we had dreams of being the next Beatles, and I ended up getting kicked out of the band. I was doing lead vocals, and I showed up one day, and another friend was doing the vocals. And to add insult to injury, his voice was changing at the time too. So his voice wasn't exactly a great voice. And for a while, I was actually paranoid that the band would become big like the Beatles. And I'd be, Pete Best, who was kicked out of the Beatles. Ringo replaced him before the Beatles got big. I was like, oh God, please don't hit it big. I'm going to feel so much like Pete Best if something happens here. And they did not hit it big. My brother still plays guitar and stuff like that. But it's funny. We were in high school at the time, but not a lot of people know. I could say, hey, I'm in an actual band. We never had any gigs or anything like that. We just horsed around and stuff, but that was the band. Yes.
That's good stuff. Well, Marc, we'll want to give the listeners a chance to be able to reach out to you. So what are some of the best ways? You mentioned your coachingjungle.com website. Are there other ways that people reach out to you as well?
Yep. The main central hub is naturalborncoaches.com. That's where you'll find all my podcasts and blog posts, all that fun stuff. So naturalborncoaches.com, or there's coachingjungle.com. And those are really the big ones that people can connect with me on.
Okay. Well, Marc, I appreciate your time carving out of your schedule there to be with us, and let us get to know you a little bit and your coaching business, and just enlightening us on what you're doing, to be able to make the world better. And so, again, I appreciate the time that you've taken to be with us.
Yeah, and thanks for the invite, James.
It was my pleasure and an honor. And as I always say to my friends, I'll see you around the bend, my friend. You've been listening to Legacy Cast. Thank you for joining us today, and be sure to come back next time as we speak with more top influencers, industry experts, and business owners from around the world.